1460 WVOX.
Now, live from Whitney Media, 1460 WVOX, the Greenburgh Report, with Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner. You can join in the conversation at 914-636-0110. Now on 1460 WVOX, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Good morning, Westchester. I'm Paul Feiner.
And I'm Pauline Mosley. Welcome.
And we have a really interesting show today. Today we're going to be talking about life, gratitude, the gift of life, overcoming challenges, and most importantly, never giving up. And we have as our special guests Jennifer Goldman and Karen Hirschleifer, and they have an extraordinary story that I think really should motivate everybody to get back on their feet when they feel that they have obstacles in their life. So thanks so much for joining us. And Jennifer, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Paul. Hi, Pauline.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, so I was very healthy before this whole thing happened. I was a runner and I hiked a lot. Thank you. I was very healthy, and this came out of the blue completely.
You had a stroke?
Yes.
And then you were in a coma?
Yes.
How long were you in a coma for?
4 weeks or so. 4 weeks or so.
Wow.
Wow. And, you know, Karen, could you tell us about your experiences?
Sure. So just a little bit of background for myself. I am an attorney, and I practiced law in New York City government for a number of years, and then was doing my own work. And presently, I am involved with my family business, which is a fifth-generation large retail store based in Americana, Manhasset.
It's called Hirschleifer's, right?
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. And I'm Jen's mom. I keep my maiden name, not to confuse everybody. I also play bass guitar. I write.
Amazing.
And before Jen's stroke, she actually was a motivational speaker, among other things. Jen, you want to?
I was a motivational speaker, that's correct. I spoke about wellness. I spoke about essential oils and aromatherapy. I spoke about how to live healthy life. I spoke about self-love and self-care. And was very independent, honestly. And so this was a big blow to me.
So maybe the purpose of your life is to motivate and inspire. So this is sort of like another way that you're inspiring people by urging people not to give up, and their challenges are probably not as great as your challenges were.
Yes. Or it's not even that. It's like you can overcome anything. Anyone could overcome anything.
Now, when you were in the coma, did you lose your, when you got out of the coma, did you lose your speaking abilities?
I did. I lost everything.
Sorry. Maybe I could just give you a little bit of context for what happened. So Jen was, as she said, in perfect health. Went to work one morning, Wednesday, August 18th of 2021, was feeling a little bit dizzy, and she works about 10 minutes from where we live. And so I got a call from the general manager. She was presently, at that time, working in my family business. And the GM called and said, there's something up with Jen. I think she's on LSD. And I said, Jen? I said, she might have taken too many herbal supplements, but LSD is not within her lexicon of products that she would normally go to, if ever. And so in any event, my husband is a doctor, board certified in emergency medicine, and was home that day, said, I'm going to run over and just check things out. And between the time that he arrived there before he arrived there, I got a call from the general manager, and I could actually hear the bleed unfold. So it was not, it was a hemorrhagic stroke, which is a pretty violent episode where there is blood that pours into your brain.
Yeah.
And because Jen is so young, her brain takes up most of her skull. It sits tightly within her skull. And so I then arrived, and we got her over to the hospital. And what then started was this struggle for survival.
We have to take a break, and after the break, we'll be right back, and we'll talk about the gift and your book and what motivated you to write the book, and also about your family and all the support you had from so many loved ones and their challenges.
Stay with us.
Great, I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor, and we'll be right back.
WVOX. Now back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor.
And I'm Pauline Mosey. Welcome back. Can you tell us, Jen, what is your age? I think for our listening audience, it would be very important for them to know the age that stroke actually occurred. So could you share that with us?
It occurred 3 days before my 31st birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was 2 years ago about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you have an incredible mom, and we'd love to hear from your mom a little bit more about the stroke from her lens perspective and how she saw it.
So the stroke, and again, it's a bleed, which is a much more violent episode. The bleed occurred in her left frontal lobe, and that means that it impacted her cognition, her emotion, her intellect, her ability to express herself, all of those things that for her were probably as important as the ability to walk. And first, the neurosurgeon thought that it was something else, and he thought that there were multiple bleeds in her brain and that she couldn't be saved. And then he came out and said, good news and bad news. The good news is it's not that. The bad news is that I believe it's a cavernous malformation, and if that's the case, I might be able to get it, but there's so much blood in her head right now that I can't really confirm that, and between now and when the blood dissipates, she can rebleed, and that would likely be fatal. And so what followed were 3 weeks during which Jen was in the neuro ICU at North Shore Hospital, which is an incredibly awesome service, and the team was incredible. And the first thing was trying to stabilize her, trying to keep her alive, because her automatic nervous system was not functioning.
Autonomic.
What did I?
Automatic is what you said.
Autonomic, I'm sorry, excuse me, was not functioning. And we were told things like she is critically critical, which I wasn't quite sure how to understand, because she's alive.
Exactly.
And am I supposed to start to plan for her demise? Right now, I'm holding fast to the fact that she's alive, and that is the present.
Yep.
But there were lots of things like that we ultimately write about in the story. Eventually, she did have to have a craniectomy. They removed a piece of her skull because to help with the intracranial pressure, which was building significantly, and that will cause your brain tissue to become injured permanently. What Jen was left with was right-sided paralysis, not able to use her right side at all, or her body didn't know that she had a right side. She couldn't walk, she couldn't sit, no use of her right arm or her right hand. She was cognitively compromised, and her head was turned to the left. She was in and out of consciousness for about 5 weeks, unable to speak for about 7, didn't know how to play tic-tac-toe, didn't know how to use a brush. When she actually came out of the
Comatose state.
And her survival was uncertain, and day to day we were really left to just be present and say she's alive right now.
That is like really amazing, and you've made so much progress.
Thank you.
And you're going to continue to make more and more progress.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That is great. Now, you wrote a book called The Gift, and I'm sort of curious what made you choose that title.
I think this whole thing has been a gift in that it's brought my family closer together, and it's brought us closer together in ways that I couldn't have imagined happening before. It's been a real gift because it's made us stronger as a family. It's caused my family to really step into who they are.
That is really
extraordinary.
Amazing. Could you tell us a little bit about some of your family members? You have a sister, and could you tell us, what some of the family members did to help you with your recovery?
My mom was the glue of our family. She holds everything together. It's really incredible what she does. My dad is really the voice of reason for the family. He is just the rational one. My sister is my protector and my best friend. That's who she is. Like, if she sees I'm uncomfortable, she'll do anything to make me more comfortable. And my boyfriend, Misha, is loyal. He's loyal, and he's very strong.
That is great. With your sister, did you have a really great relationship with her before?
It wasn't great at all. It was actually strained before this, and when this happened, she really stepped to the plate. Yeah.
Well, I think you're an incredible person, because I think when situations or unexpected or unforeseen challenges occur in one's life, one can either look at it as, why did this happen to me? Or they can look at it the way you have, which is as it's a gift. And I think that's an enormous amount of maturity and resilience to look at it, look at the positivity of the situation and look at what the benefits of that are. I think this is most incredibly moving and so inspirational for all of our listeners, and transformative for our lives, because each of us and every day we are hit with on things that we weren't prepared for. Like you said, you were so healthy, you probably envisioned a different life path for yourself, but the way you are handling the blow and being able to share your story through radio and now through written, and with your incredible mom. I know as a mom, hearing all of this, I'm just trying to digest it. I mean, as a lawyer, do you think your skill sets as a lawyer of analyzing and digesting information was able to help you understand this and be there for your daughter?
Right. It's interesting, because one of the things that you have to do when your daughter or anyone that you love is critically ill is to constantly reframe expectations, because the landscape changes hourly. And so, as a lawyer, you're always coming up with you're always thinking about different fact patterns and what the legal implication of those fact patterns might be. So you're always reframing. What if this fact were there? How would that change my argument or my position? At the same time, having to constantly reframe expectations, having to stay present is challenging, because a lawyer or somebody with sort of a more methodically thinking mind wants to have things plotted out in a careful way. And it was just really crazy to have to sort of be in this state where, in this very moment, I am okay and Jen is okay and the rest of my family's okay. Will I be saying that in 6 hours from now? I have no idea. So that was really, really hard. Actually, I have a passage that maybe I can share.
Okay.
Please do.
And then Jen, maybe you can share one of your passages.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this was written on August 23rd, 21. The stroke was August 18th. It's amazing the terror you live with each day as the newest set of medical challenges arises and your little girl struggles for a future which seemed an absolute certainty only days before. I think about her working in her small studio space in our basement, crafting teas and oils, the scent of rose, lavender, and neroli wafting through the air, the sound of her voice ringing out as she sang to some electronic vibrating beat. She loved to play electronica when she was creating. But was any of it a certainty? How do we live with the realization that nothing is certain when each potentially terrifying event passes and Jen is still there hanging on? Only then can you let yourself connect with those most recent feelings of terror. You permit yourself to feel the emotional battering you've been taking. And when this happens, you become profoundly sad as you reflect on the bigger questions of why this happened in the first place and how was this going to end. What was the lesson? Was there even a lesson? How does one be with the unknown and fill that space?
And Jen?
I have a new sense of purpose. I want to write a book. I want to share my story. I want to bring others hope and help them overcome challenges. I see myself as a mindfulness teacher. I'm teaching a class with lots of people in it. I think of John Kabat-Zinn, wherever you go, there you are. When I get discouraged, I force myself to stay present in the here and now. We don't know what the future will bring. I choose to stay present and let things unfold.
And this was actually written by Jen November 6th of 2021. So again, her stroke was August 18th. She was released or discharged from Glen Cove Hospital, which is where she did rehab, on November 4th. And if I may, there was a period where once Jen finally came home, she had no idea of what happened. She didn't know. There were memory issues, but then there were other issues.
We're going to have to take a break, and then we'll be right back, and we're going to be talking about the book, The Gift, with Jennifer Goldman and Karen Hirschleifer. I want to talk about, after the break, what motivated you to write the book and the status of the book right now. Again, thank you so much for this very inspiring story, and it really sends a message to everybody that they should never give up, and they should also appreciate life and all the pluses in life, even when they think they have bumps in the road.
Now back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner.
I'm Pauline Mosley. Welcome back.
And this is definitely the most inspiring story since I've been town supervisor, because it really highlights how people could not give up and overcome, challenges. But also, what I like about Jennifer is you basically are highlighting that you could appreciate little things in life. Because I guess before your stroke, did you take things for granted?
I did, 100%. Yeah, I did. I really did.
And I just had one, this is a curiosity question. Your boyfriend was somebody who stood by you.
Yes.
And that's sort of like remarkable, because a lot of people, if they're a boyfriend or a girlfriend, somebody has like a major calamity,
Yes.
they would say they're going to be there for them.
Yes.
And then like a week later, they would walk away.
And the most remarkable thing about that is we'd only been together for a year before this happened. It was amazing that he stood by me through this whole thing.
That is really...
That's love.
Yeah.
It's definitely, love.
And he actually, we were sort of like different legs of a table where we were all sitting and supporting the table. Mm-hmm. And the table was our family. Mm-hmm. And so the day that this happened, we're all in the hospital, and that night, as we were sent home, I asked Misha, Jen's boyfriend, I said, "You're going home to the apartment that you and Jen recently rented and have been living in for like 3 weeks?" And he said, "I don't really want to." I said, "Come stay with us." Mm-hmm. And so Mikey, or Misha, came home with us and has been there ever since. Mm-hmm. And so presently we've got Jen living at the house, Amanda living at the house, Mikey living at the house. And he is so essential. We all, especially during the time where Jen was in the hospital and we just didn't know day to day, moment by moment, what the upshot was going to be. But just to have him and to, we sort of, every night we would come home and we would sit at the dining room table and we would eat something. There would be some nights where Amanda would say, "No hospital talk tonight. We're watching the birdcage. We're going to laugh," or Corky Romano or something. And we didn't speak a word about illness, stroke, recovery, anything like that. There were other nights where we were just so dejected and just hopeless. And we would be able to rely on each other to just come together. And that's really what got us through. People say, "What got you through?" Mm-hmm. Especially the beginning part where Jen wasn't yet a part of it because she was, trying to stay alive. And it was just it's just the ability to sit together and to just come together. And there was something very supportive about that experience.
Sometimes when people are going through difficulties like the difficulties you experienced, and they go home, they can't handle it, and they'd be yelling and screaming at each other. Did you have any of that where when your daughter was in a coma, you'd be so upset that you'd take it out on anybody else in the family?
No, we never had any of that. It was all, how could we collaborate? We were really kind to each other because, it's sort of curious because even though on the one hand we're all together, there was something profoundly lonely about the experience because even though you're with your other daughter and your husband and your hopefully son-in-law, we each process grief based on the prior experiences in our lives and whatever our spirituality is or whatever. And so we were together, but sometimes feeling especially alone. But we were never, we would always support each other as best we could.
I just had another question about support. Do you feel that the support that your family, your boyfriend, sister, mother, father, gave you, did that help you overcome the challenges? And would have a lot of people in the same circumstances not been successful had they not had a supportive family?
Of course. I think my family has played a pivotal role in my recovery because they've been so supportive, and I think that it's made a big difference in my recovery.
Did you ever get discouraged during your recovery, or did you just say, "I'm going to beat this whole"? I
get discouraged every day. What keeps me going is the progress that I make every day. It's like a double-edged sword.
And how do you keep improving? What are you doing? You know, and what tips do you have for other people?
I don't really know so much about the tips I have. I just keep my head down. I stay present, really. I guess that's a tip for everyone, is to just stay present through your process, through your journey of recovery. I guess that's it.
And Karen, what in terms of the whole recovery, the plan, is there like a strategy, like in terms of the therapies and the programs?
Well, Jen is completely committed to full recovery. And, you know, because of her age, you know, generally people have this kind of event much later in life. And so a lot of the predictions as to the extent of recovery are based on people who are older and whose brains have less neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the ability for your neural pathways to heal and regenerate. And sometimes they become more effective, regenerated, than they were before. But it's a process. And you know, and so, you know, basically, I lost my train of thought there. I'm so sorry.
Well, that's okay. In terms of the book that you wrote, the book you wrote, one of your challenges right now is getting the book published.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And is that I would think that this would be a bestseller, to be honest. So
Absolutely.
I feel bad I'm not in the publishing business. I could have retired on a bestseller. But the thing is, you know, tell us the challenges of writing a book. First of all, was this a whole family collaborative?
It was.
It was actually. So I started taking notes contemporaneously in the hospital because I needed to try to process all of the emotions that were coming up for me.
Yeah.
And I like to write. Writing for me has always
And cathartic.
Yes, it's been cathartic, and it informs where I am. And so I like to write, you know, basically when Jen finally came home and we sat together, she didn't know a lot of what happened. And when she told me that she found this experience to be a gift, I said, well, let's write something. And she said, yes, we're going to call it The Gift. And so we wrote much of this together, sitting side by side. And I would actually do the writing because Jen was not really at that point able to use her laptop very effectively. But it was sort of, I mean, it was interesting because the writing the process was amazing.
Yes. It was a way to process what I was going through, what we were going through as a family.
Right. And so I would tell her stories. She would want to know what happened. Where was I then? What did I say? What did I look like? And I would tell her things that she had no idea had happened. And she would get sad and start to cry. And I'd say, I'm going to stop. She said, no, I want to hear it all. I want to know what you went through. And so as we sat and discussed what happened, it was an experience the two of us shared in my filling her in on what happened. And you know, Jen would say, oh my God, that must have been so painful. That must have been so scary. That must have been so horrible. How did Amanda handle that? And so it was really, the writing of it was
a cathartic process.
It was a cathartic process. It was very connective for Jen and myself.
Yeah.
And then Mikey wrote his pieces. Amanda helped write some of her pieces. David, I initially wrote his pieces, and then he basically said, no, you're too intellectual. I'm a doctor. I need to write them a little bit differently. And so he rewrote a bunch of his pieces.
Good. We have to be back. We have one last break, and we'll be back, and we'll be talking about The Gift. And although it's not published yet, it probably will be a bestseller sometime in the future. And I could put this on my resume that I interviewed you before you became a bestseller author. So we'll be right back. I'm Paul Feiner.
I'm Pauline Mosley, and please return for our last segment.
Now, back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner. I'm Greenburgh Town Supervisor.
I'm Pauline Mosley. Welcome back.
And one of the questions, I had is frequently when somebody's in a hospital and they want to speak to the doctor will spend like 20 seconds and then say, I'm busy, and, move on. Did you find in your, and I don't want to get all the doctors angry at me, but did you find the doctors were empathetic, and did they spend the time, and were they optimistic, or were they very blunt and said, this is really very serious, we can't tell you anything? Were they the ones who gave you hope, or were they discouraging?
I think
Can I respond to this?
Oh, of course.
They're not discouraging, but they weren't hopeful. They just had like an even keel about them, but they were very kind to me because of my age and because I was like their daughter or their sibling or their cousin or something. And I think that's what made them nice to me. And they just had never seen someone my age before. I mean, they had, but it was like very rare for them to see that.
Yeah, I mean, in the neuro ICU, most of the patients were twice Jen's age at least.
Yeah.
And you could see the concern on the part of the nurses and the staff there, who were phenomenal. And one nurse that took care of Jen stayed in touch. I had brought in some of Jen's aromatherapy products that she had created and was selling as part of her business. And I brought it into the room because I wanted to start to reconnect Jen with different types of sensory elements that might help her cognition and come back. And so there was this particular sacred presence mist, and it's actually one of my favorite mists. And there's neroli in it, which reminds me of Cleopatra. But the nurse basically said, "What is that?" And then I told her Jen had made these products, and she actually took my cell number, and subsequently. She was Jen's age.
Yeah.
Subsequently reached out to me. How is Jen doing? And she came to visit once.
Yeah.
Are there support groups that you got involved with? Of people who
There's Toastmasters, which I've joined, which is like a public speaking group, and I've joined that, and it's been amazing for me in my recovery.
I'm sort of also wondering if, I've always thought if, say, a hospital, when, the doctors are matter of fact.
Right.
And, some people get freaked out when you talk to a doctor because they're not going to sometimes encourage you, be that encouraging. Do you think that, say, for you, it would be, I could see that there's other people who have strokes. And there's there's family members who are all stressed out. Seeing you could make a world of a difference because they could always, they could think, wow, I could also overcome this. Have you thought about using this experience to motivate families and other survivors?
I have thought about that.
you know, it's interesting because people would reach out and say, what can I do? What can I do? And, you know, it's not that those inquiries were unappreciated. It's just we were trying to figure out how we're going to navigate this. And then there was, you know, a lot of people who reached out, how can we help you navigate it? And so I actually directed people to do what they, you know, what is it you do to connect with your feelings? Do you write? Do you paint? Do you sing? Do you dance? Do you play bass guitar? Whatever it might be, do that. That's what you need to do. And people found that to be really helpful and effective. But you know, a lot of people do reach out and say, how did you have the strength to get through this? And, you know, I don't really know the answer to that question. I mean, I feel lucky that, I mean, you know, I
think, if I may,
yeah,
it's a support of our family and everyone just coming together.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
So may I ask, when this event occurred, how did you manage your law practice or your family business? Did your priorities have to shift and change? Because one of the things, if you could talk to, is so many people in life have a perception of what normal is. Like, I want to go back to my normal life.
Yeah.
And when these events occur of uncertainty and things that we do not see that are in our way, we have to pivot and create a new norm. So can you talk to that, how your whole family's, this, you know, unexpected event transitioned everybody's priority and their daily way of living was really a paradigm shift. So can you talk to that a little bit for our audience and how we can make those changes?
Right. So for me, one of the things that was the most difficult to navigate, other than the loss of routine, the ability to go to work and set your mind to some problem and solve it or try to solve it. Here we are dealing with problems that seem intractable, that we have no control over, we have no ability to touch. They are what they are. They have to take their course. And again, thankfully, we had amazing medical care to support that. You know, so that's really, it's really hard to try to exist when you feel like you're pulled out. But the other thing that was sort of interesting for me was that the time that I spent with Jen, even when she was sort of comatose or unable to communicate, the time that I spent with my family was so real and meaningful. And to then have that vivid, it was like living life in like incredible color. And to then go to try to do some other task, like to work or to whatever, just where the interaction, the connection is less intense, was so hard. And it just reminds me when my mother-in-law was passing, the time that we spent immediately preceding her passing was really rich. And nothing else mattered. It just mattered being with her, communicating with her, staying with her, you know, and then to go back to your other life where sometimes you feel like, you know, you're distracted, you know, you're unhappy. That's really hard. And so, you know, for us, it's just been like the time that we spent together is so rich and connected and intense. And so sometimes to leave that and then try to pick back up and do other things, it's a contrast. It's hard.
You mentioned that your life has changed and your attitude has changed, and you also mentioned that your sister and you didn't get along always before the incident, but now you're like best friends and a protector.
Yeah.
Why do you think she changed? Why? Because your attitude about life changed, and you appreciate the gift of life. What about her?
I think she just realized that there's more important things than arguing about stupid things like clothing. That was like what we argued about. And she just like put that all aside and she really stepped up to the plate. And I think that that's what made a difference. I think she realized how precious life is and there's only so much you can do to like be there for someone.
Right. We only have like about a minute left, but until the book is out, if people want to read the story, is there a way that they could read it, like get an advanced copy of the manuscript or learn more about this?
They could email me and I'd be happy to send it.
And what's the email?
Karen, CARYN, at hirschleifers.com, HIRSHLEIFERS, period.
And I also scanned the book. And so if anybody, any of the listeners or constituents would like the book, they could also email me at pfeiner, FEINER, at greenburghny.com, and we'll be happy to email it to you. But it really is a great story. So I guess one of the lessons is that people shouldn't give up.
Yes.
And where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Honestly, I have no idea. I see myself married with children. That's first of all. I see myself walking. I see myself using my right arm. I see myself talking fluidly.
Were you ever a runner?
I was a runner.
Okay, so maybe I'll challenge you in 10 years to a race.
Okay.
And now I'm going to start practicing. So.
Well, thank you both so much for having us.
Thank you so much for hosting us.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Thank you, and good luck for this. This is a very inspiring story, and
thank you.
I hope that other people who have similar obstacles in life will be inspired by this and realize that they can't give up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor. Speak to everybody next week.